We are live. We are live. I'm Dr. Frita, and I'm very excited to be here for another Medical Monday where we talk about all of the hot health topics in the headlines. We've got many of them today. We have President Joe Biden, and we know that he has COVID. He has COVID, which is the medical headline. But then even beyond that, we know we have even more headlines because he has stepped down as being the presidential nominee. And of course, we know that he has endorsed Vice President Kamala Harris. So we'll definitely talk about COVID updates, what you need to know about the new CDC guidelines and about the treatments. But then we'll also dip into another conversation, and that is age-related illnesses, like things that happen with your cognition as you get older, things that happen with your physical capabilities as you get older. And no one is immune. Not just President Biden, but also the former president is no spring chicken either. So we'll talk about some of those things, and we'll talk about ageism and how it affects the medical field. And then we'll take a little chit chat about deli meat. Do y'all like ham, salami, turkey? You love going to the deli? Well, guess what? There has been a bacterial infection, Listeria, and a recall on many deli meats. There have even been 2 deaths. So if you are a deli meat eater, which there are some reasons which other than just the infection, perhaps you shouldn't be. We'll talk about that infection and what to do and some of the signs and symptoms of the Listeria infection. And then we'll talk about women. Yay, women, super women. Many of us are the head of running the households, making sure everyone goes to their doctor's appointments, their soccer games. We organize so many things. But a new study shows that many women don't take care of their own health. Am I talking to you? We'll talk about it. We'll talk about better ways for women to take care of themselves and to prioritize themselves. Lastly, we'll talk about my favorite tennis star, Serena Williams. She's doing all right. Oh, she's fine. But the husband of hers has Lyme disease. What's that? We'll talk about it. So come on in, like this video, and make sure you get your questions together because we have a live Q&A. Stay with me. Hello, hello. We're live. I'm Dr. Frita. Come on in, like this video and share it. Share it with the people you care about. It lets YouTube know that we're here and we're giving evidence-based information. But y'all know I'm not doing it alone. I have my co-host and my practice manager, Shador. Come on to the front of the room, Shador. How are you doing?
Doing pretty good. How are you?
Doing real well. Doing real well. How was your vacation last week? Y'all, we took a vacation. Much needed.
Much needed, like relaxing for me. Just
very good.
Give some rest, mental break.
Good. We had a nice relaxing vacation as well. And we had a family reunion. Hey, y'all put a 1 in the chat for those of you who have family reunions. I've learned that everyone doesn't do that type of a thing. And I don't know if it's just largely in the Black culture or what, but we have family reunions every year. And we had a good old time. We had the proverbial fish fry. We had the picnic. We had the banquet, all the things that make a reunion a reunion. But Shador, there was a little bit of bad news that occurred during the reunion. And that is with Representative Sheila Jackson Lee, the representative of Texas. She graduated from Yale University. She passed away at the age of 74. She was a municipal court judge. She was a city council member. And then she was elected into the United States Congress. She ran back in 1994, served for almost 3 decades. And she's quite recognizable because she often wore that goddess braid. This big goddess braid was kind of her signature piece. And at the State of the Union, she would sit right there on the aisle. I don't know how she got the aisle seat every time and always engage with the presidents. She did a whole lot for civil rights. She was one of the leaders in getting Juneteenth to become a federal holiday. And she was an advocate for women's rights, human rights. And she actually shared in June that she was living with pancreatic cancer. And so rest in peace to Representative Sheila Jackson Lee. And if you want to learn more about pancreatic cancer, go to my Instagram feed. I just posted on yesterday. So if you go to @dr.frita, at dr.frita, give me a follow there. We have different content there than we have here on YouTube, but I talk about pancreatic cancer and some things you need to know. And also I go into more detail here on my YouTube channel, Pancreatic Cancer Signs and Symptoms. So she will be missed. All right. Well, let's just go ahead and jump right into these hot health topics and the headlines. We got a lot to talk about, Shador.
Absolutely.
Let's start with deli meat. You know, good and well, Shador, people love their sandwiches. They love their sandwiches. They like their ham. They like their turkey. They like their salami. And, you know, on video after video, I talk about how certain processed meats will have, you know, a lot of salt and be a part of those ultra processed foods that aren't always good for you. That's for a separate reason. But for this reason, there was actually a recall due to a bacterial infection. And there have already been some fatalities. Let's run that clip.
In tonight's Health Watch, we have a warning for you about eating deli meats after a Listeria outbreak has been reported in a dozen states, including here in New York and New Jersey. The CDC says at least 28 people have gotten sick, including 2 who died. One of the deaths was in New Jersey. In New York, 7 people have gotten sick. The CDC says the food poisoning was linked to meat sliced at grocery store deli counters, most commonly turkey, liverwurst, and ham. We spoke with a local doctor who explained the common symptoms.
They would have headache, stiff neck, fever, muscle aches, fatigue. But if the patient is immunocompromised or over 65-year-old, they can have severe disease.
The CDC says so far there is no information showing that people are getting sick from prepackaged deli meats.
Okay, so it looks like they've narrowed it down. Shador, I believe that I'm gonna go ahead and blame you because you say Shadow hadn't made an appearance in a while. Shadow's up here barking up a storm, but we'll see what happens. But yeah, so did anyone put a 1 in the chat for my initial question?
Yes, we do.
Family reunions. Who was the first one in the chat, Shador?
The first one in the chat today was Miss Aline.
Hi, Miss Aline. All right, so you have family reunions. Okay.
She did put a 1 there as well for family reunions. Also, Janetta.
Hi, Janetta.
And Venezuela. She put a 1 that they do as well, but she also put an interesting fact about the senator that you speaking of, Jackson. She said,
Representative Jackson.
Representative Jackson. She said that I'm going to miss her. She attended my church.
No, that means you must be a Texan unless you attended when she was in
Houston.
DC.
In Houston, she
oh no! Oh, I'm so sorry for your loss. Yes, yeah, we will. I mean, almost 3 decades of service, and she was no shrinking violet. She was outspoken, and at one point, she was the whip of the Congressional Black Caucus. I mean, she was for the people. Her father was the son of Jamaican immigrants. Her mom, I learned, was actually from St. Petersburg, Florida, which is my hometown. So she attended your church. I'm sorry for your loss. We'll miss Representative Sheila Jackson Lee. Yeah.
One more, Dr. Frita. Miss Monica, hi.
Hi, Miss Monica.
She said, not anymore for the family reunions. The family who held it down all passed away.
Okay. Listen, Miss Monica. So what we actually did this year, and we've started to do it, even last year we started the next generation. So my mom is one of 16 children. Bless the people. She's number 7 out of 16 children. And for the longest time, all of her sisters mainly were the ones who led it. But for the last 2 family reunions, my generation, okay, all of the cousins have been throwing it. And by all of the cousins, I mean my other cousins who are really good at organizing have been taking care of the reunion. And so if that torch is not passed, while everybody is, still feeling good and healthy, I'm here, Shadow, where everyone's still feeling good and healthy, then it's an issue. Yep. So y'all should wake it back up. Go ahead and pass that torch. Yeah.
It's been passed in my family. People from my age group, whatever, taking the reins.
All right, let's talk about Listeria. But I got to talk about Shadow first. Gregory, y'all forgive the people. Gregory, come get Shadow. I'm in a live. I don't care. You come get her. And everybody hears you on the live. Hi. Mm-hmm. All right. Stop talking back. All right. So yes, for this Listeria. Now, if y'all check out my different videos, and if you check out the things I put on YouTube as well as on Instagram, I talk about ultra processed foods, and I talk about certain meats, specifically meats that are prepackaged, especially if they're packaged in salts. Well, in this particular Listeria breakout, they said it wasn't in the prepackaged meats. It was actually in specifically the deli meats. And Listeria was found, and literally there have been at least 2 deaths from it. So it's very serious. So let's talk about Listeria. And I want you to put a 2 in this chat if you have heard of this bacterium, Listeria. So Listeria is often found in unpasteurized dairy products, okay? And it can be found in soil even. It can be found in fecal matter, and it can be passed on through contamination, including, as we see now, in the deli meats. And so there's been a recall. And raw vegetables can have it, especially if the raw vegetables have been in soil that has been fertilized with contaminated manure, okay? And again, in milk, specifically unpasteurized milk. So what can happen if you get Listeria, this bacterial infection? You can get headache, fever, nausea, vomiting, and the symptoms don't always show up right away. In fact, they can often show up days to weeks out. And that's what happened in some of the cases that were reported in this most recent Listeria outbreak. People had eaten the food, and then it was a while later before they got these symptoms. The people who are vulnerable, okay, people who are a little older, like older than the age of 65, certainly immunocompromised people. If you have some type of an autoimmune disease like lupus, or if you're on a medicine that pushes down or suppresses your immune system, people who have had transplants and they're on medicines that suppress their immune system. Also, pregnant women. Pregnant women are highly susceptible to getting Listeria. And oftentimes, if a pregnant woman gets the Listeria infection, she may have mild symptoms, she may do okay, but that unborn baby, okay, she can have a miscarriage. Okay, there can be fetal death due to the Listeria. And so, especially if you're in one of these categories, someone older than 65, immunocompromised or pregnant, you want to be very careful about the foods that you eat. And you want to avoid definitely unpasteurized milks. You want to avoid soft cheeses, things of that nature. And if you have the symptoms, you want to present to your physician right away. Okay, you want to present to your physician right away, because we do have antibiotics, but you first have to be thinking and recognize the symptoms. Yeah. Had anyone heard of this outbreak? Had anyone heard of Listeria at all?
Oh yeah, quite a few people.
Oh, who heard of it? Yes, how many
First
super
will chime in.
Who is this?
Catherine
Hi, Catherine.
Thomas.
Hi, Thomas. You heard of it? Okay.
Mhm. And Luella has heard of it.
Hello there, Luella. All right. Well, hey, if you know, show and tell other people about it, because I just feel like it's not talked about enough, and people are so, quick to ignore symptoms for many reasons. Nobody feels like being sick, and sometimes you just don't have time to go to the doctor, or you might be underinsured. You might not have the insurance, but you don't want to play with your life. You definitely want to see your doctor. Y'all be sure to go ahead and like as you come on in, and again, share. Click that little share button. All right. Copy the link, put it in the group chat. Send it to your to some of your contacts, anyone who wants to know some evidence-based information as we move into these topics. And I know they want to talk about our president and this COVID outbreak. We just need to talk about that. But yes, so make sure you take care of yourselves. And speaking of taking care of yourselves, now I'm talking to the women, all the single ladies, the married ladies too, because studies show women, we're not taking care of ourselves the way we should. Now, good and well, ladies, if you have a spouse, you make sure your spouse never misses a doctor's appointment or a dental appointment. You make sure your kids are sitting up there with their updated immunizations and all the like. You make sure that your parents are taken care of, and y'all going to the doctor. Have you had your heart scans? You do all of that. But Shador, a lot of women don't take care of themselves. And as we go on and we go ahead and play this next clip about the women in the chat, I want y'all to put some reasons why you think that women specifically are doing a poor job as far as going to our doctor's appointments and taking care of ourselves. Tell me, and if it's you and I'm talking to you and you want to be big and bold and come to the front of the room, tell me why you're not taking care of yourself, or just why you suspect that a lot of women don't take care of themselves the way that we should when it comes to our health. So we'll go ahead and play the clip, and I want to hear what our med heads have to say, because Shador, they always have something to say.
Absolutely.
According to a new survey, about 72 million women in the U.S. have skipped or delayed a recommended health screening. The poll was conducted by Gallup for a medical technology company. It found 90% of women acknowledge the importance of regular health screenings, but more than 40% have skipped or delayed a test. And more than 60% responded it was hard to make their own health a priority. That's because women often spend more time as caregivers for others, or have work or family obligations keeping them out of the doctor's office. Now, the study focused on cancer screenings. Specifically, 41% of U.S. women delayed or skipped those screenings for breast cancer, 35% for cervical cancer, and 33% for colorectal cancer.
Yeah. And that really hits home because, again, Shadora, we see it because when we look at the majority of the caregivers who come to our office, it's oftentimes women, right, who are taking care of their husbands or taking care of their mothers or even taking care of their children, especially if they have adult children who have disabilities. You have the women who are definitely caregivers. And just like they said, over 90% of the women recognize the importance of screening, but still we have that huge number who aren't getting the screening. So we'll talk about that. And we'll also specifically talk about that breast cancer screening. And then we'll get into another death that occurred. But before we do it, did anyone give any commentary on why they think that these numbers are what they are? Why women sometimes don't prioritize their own health?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So,
Okay.
DM, hello,
Hi, DM.
Says not informed on health matters.
Okay, I'm sure education could be a part of it. According to that study, though, 90% understand the importance of it, and still over 40% skip or delay. Okay,
T Chosen, hello.
T Chosen.
Busy with work and family.
That's real. And that's probably, yeah, that's a real one because when your schedules are really full, then it is difficult to schedule. But here's the key. Those of us, I'm talking to myself too, no matter how busy we are with our work, somehow we always manage to make sure our kids have what they need, right? Or our loved ones. And so there's probably also a little bit of denial and not really wanting to know or hear if something's wrong with you, especially if you're the matriarch, if you're the main head female in your family, you just feel like you don't have time to be sick. And so you might use being busy, even though being busy is absolutely true and is valid, but it may also be a little buffer of an excuse not to have to deal with your own health issues because you literally feel like you don't have time to be sick. Who else? Anyone else? Yeah.
Yes, KRB spoke personally.
Hi. Oh, okay.
Hey, KRB, limited money. So I take care of my children first and myself if I have enough money.
That makes me very sad because I promise you, you're not the first person to say that. Thank you for sharing and for being transparent. And that's not in KRB. It's not even just with healthcare, is it? Like you have mothers who maybe want to go out or do something special, maybe, take their kids out to a restaurant, and you have mothers who will let their kids order whatever on the kids menu. Okay, get what you like. Okay, get something. And then you have the mother sitting there drinking, the tap water, like, oh, baby, I'm not hungry, because something in mothers, especially the real ones, it makes you just put your kids first to your detriment. But let me tell you something, KRB, it is tricky. And, a lot of people are underinsured. I'll admit our health insurance and our healthcare system leaves a lot to be desired, here in the United States. And we're working, we're constantly doing legislation and trying. But if you look at the United States, and yes, I love living in the United States. I wouldn't choose another country. I'm gonna stay here and work to fix whatever we need to fix. And I'm gonna enjoy whatever benefits we do have. But we do have some problems. One is the healthcare system. Of all of the high income countries, Italy, Portugal, Spain, all of them, Japan, we have the lowest life expectancy, okay, here in the United States. Yeah, we're supposed to be a leading country, leader of the free world, lowest life expectancy of the high income countries. But guess what? We have the highest healthcare expenditures. It costs the most for healthcare, which is why many people are in that very predicament. But yeah, I certainly hope that you are able to prioritize your health, because one thing that's true, KRB, Shador, one thing we know for sure, if we don't pause to take care of ourselves, we may not be here to take care of our children. We may not have that health capacity. So by taking care of yourself, you still are taking care of your children. But I get it. Thank you for sharing.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about some of the specific screenings that they say that women are not always taken care of. So first, let's talk about the breast cancer. Now, normally, I love doing little quizzes, as you know, and saying, oh, what's the appropriate age for breast cancer screening? But the tough thing is, Shador, is that depending on the society, the organization, there are different ones. Okay. So like the cancer societies, like the American Cancer Society, may have different recommendations than the, OBGYNs, which may have different recommendations than the United States Preventive Services Task Force. So it's a bit different and a bit confusing on when you're supposed to get your screening mammograms. Mm-hmm. At one point, and I just recently was on a national news show. If you check my Instagram, or even if you if you go to this YouTube channel, dr.frita, well, I'm very proud to say we have over 740,000 subscribers. Thank you for everyone who's here and supporting. But if you go to this YouTube channel, Dr. Frita, to my playlist under television appearances, you'll see where just recently this year, I talked about one of the new screening mammogram recommendations that came out, because there was a while when the U.S. Preventive Services Task Force was saying that 50 was the age where they recommended that you get screened. But now we've learned that the incidence of breast cancer has been increasing year by year in recent decades, okay? And largely in women under 50. So now they say that 40 is a year of recommendation. And the U.S. Preventive Services Task Force says every other year, but you have many people in cancer societies, women's health societies who still say, women should be screened every year. I'll tell you, full disclosure, I'm with the more conservative group where I'm saying at least by the age of 40, you should be screened, and every year, especially if you are in a high risk group. And what makes you high risk? Well, if you have a family history, okay. So for example, if you have a first degree family member, like a mother or a sibling who was diagnosed with breast cancer at 45, many will recommend that you get your first mammogram 10 years prior to that. Okay. And not just that 2D mammogram that was the traditional one, but the 3D mammogram, it tends to pick up more, especially if you have dense breasts. And then for women, Black women specifically, we tend to be diagnosed at younger ages with more aggressive cancers. And we are over 40% more likely to die from breast cancer. Yes, Black women are. And so it's important to be very aggressive in the screening. Consult with your physician. But I want to talk about very specifically, and I'm going to ask this question too. I want to know how many women or someone who has a loved one and they know about their loved one's health, who's a woman, how many of you were told to get your first mammogram by the age of 40? How many of you were told, put a 3 in the chat, if you were told to get your first mammogram by the age of 40? Because I've talked to some patients who said, oh yeah, it's been recommended by 50 if you're low risk, which it was by one specific society, but even that society now says age 40. So put a 3 if you've been told that you should get your first mammogram at least by the age of 40. Okay. But we know that just recently we had a death. We had a death from Shannon Doherty. You remember she was a star of Beverly Hills 90210. Oh, Shador, you would have been real. Were you even born? You would have been real young.
Born, I just probably was for my TV time.
Probably not our age, but but I used to watch that show, Beverly Hills 90210. Honey, they had drama. They were old rich kids with a bunch of drama in Hollywood area. But she also played in Charmed, and she was actually quite good, quite a talented actor. But she shared that she had been diagnosed with breast cancer in 2015, I believe. And initially she went into remission. Shannon Doherty did for about 2 years. But then when the breast cancer came back, it came back with a vengeance. And she even had metastatic lesions to the brain. The cancer went to her brain. But what I really liked about her was that she did a podcast. She kept that going. She worked. She wasn't dying with breast cancer. She was living with breast cancer. She was very vocal. She said she wasn't afraid of death. She was like, I'll be honest, I don't feel like dying. She's like, but I'm not afraid. She said, because I'm a good person. I know where I'm going. But she really faced it head on, was very pro as far as breast cancer. But make sure you consult with your physicians to get your breast cancer screenings. And if your physician is someone who is not very conservative, if they're like, oh, you could just wait, or ask them why. And very specifically, if you're in a high risk group, as in, family history, or if you are someone who is of African descent, if you're a Black woman, please remind your physician, if they're not pushing you to get your screening, that you are of high risk. And here's another thing. I know a lot of people I talk to will say, oh, I don't have a family history. Nobody in my family has breast cancer. And that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Congratulations to you. But here's something that's very important to know. 85% of the women diagnosed with breast cancer have no family history. So just because you have no family history, that doesn't make you exempt. You still want to make sure that you get screened. And also men folks, hello men. Hi, love y'all men. I'm talking to you too, because men can get breast cancer too. All right. I want someone to put in the chat if they know what famous artist's father was diagnosed with breast cancer. Just recently, actually. Well, when I say recently, within the last 5-6 years. All right, while they're putting that on the father, did anyone put a 3 where their doctor did tell them to get screened before the age of 3? I mean,
Yes.
before they about 40.
Not before the age of 3, of course
Not
not.
about 3. Everybody leave the toddlers where they are. Let the toddlers just do what they need to do. Okay.
Right. So Venezuela,
Hi, Venezuela.
she put a 3. She said breast cancer runs. Her mom had it and her sister. Now with all of us girls in the family, we have to go every year. Well, they suggested we go every year.
Very good. And talk to them because, you know, again, people get tied up, they get busy, and nobody really feels like going in that mammogram machine where you're doing gymnastics and like you're in a fight with your breast. Nobody feels like that, but it's crucial, especially with that family history. And also make sure that you ask about being tested for the genetic markers like the BRCA1, BRCA2, and you find out because it will lead the treatment in case someone else does get breast cancer. You know, do you just get the lump removed of the breast, or do you need to get a double mastectomy like Angelina Jolie did? You just want to make sure you are proactive. Make sure you and the ladies in your families are your own advocates. And again, the men also, because 1 out of every 100 cases of breast cancer is in a man. Yeah.
Mhm.
Anyone else? Has anyone else been given the proper?
Yeah, Aline. She said she started hers earlier because her first cousin had breast cancer.
Very good. Yeah. All right.
Yeah, Lisa. Hi,
Hi,
Lisa.
Lisa.
She put a 3.
Very good. So I like that. So the doctors are at least telling y'all about 40. I like it. Good. All right. And
Here's an
my trivia question.
Dr. Frita.
Hmm?
R. Barnes put a 3 and said, Ashley, I was told to go twice a year due to having dense breasts.
Okay. Now I really like you. I love the aggressive physician. So yes. So again, if you have dense breasts, just for the screening portion, the 3D mammogram is recommended. And listen, some of these insurance companies are behind and they may say, oh, we don't cover the 3D, we just cover the 2-dimensional. Make sure you ask the questions, because when someone says they're not covering something, a lot of us will be like, you're not covering it, I ain't paying for it. But sometimes the cost is not something that is out of everyone's reach. So, you know, sometimes the cost of a 3D mammogram might be $100 out of pocket. Now, I understand that $100 may be something that some people are not able to purchase, but I think that a lot of the people who say insurance is not covering it, I'm not doing it, those people might leave that office and go spend $100 on dinner real quick, you know? So make sure you at least ask before you assume that you cannot afford the out-of-pocket cost. And again, advocate for yourself. Write the company, let them know, you know, hey, let them know that studies have shown, hey, I have dense breast, I'm at high risk. I was told that 3D mammogram, you guys should cover this for me. You know, fight for yourself with these insurance companies. All right, good. And yes, and if you have dense breasts and it's tough for them to see, they might even have you do a breast MRI, things of that nature. All right. Before we move on to the next topic, anyone else? Does anyone know which famous artist's father was very public about his diagnosis?
Yes, ma'am. So we have 2 to chime in.
Who knew? Who these little know-it-all? Who these little mad heads?
Ruth. Hi, Ruth.
Hi, Ruth.
She says Beyonce's father, and Aline,
Got it.
by name, Matthew Knowles.
Matthew Knowles, exactly. That's absolutely right. And I really appreciate him because he has been very vocal about it. And I actually, if you go to, oh gosh, I do have it on my Instagram, but I also have it on my television appearances playlist here on this channel, where I had the pleasure of being on a panel with him, a medical panel with him. It was for Rolling Out, and we were talking about Black health. So Matthew Knowles was on the panel with me. So was T-Boz. And, you know, T-Boz, she lives with sickle cell disease and also some autoimmune diseases. And they were just being very open, transparent, and, you know, talking about, it was just a really good conversation. But Beyonce's father, Matthew Knowles, shared that he had been diagnosed with breast cancer. And he said that the way it first presented was like this little red dot that just kept showing up on his t-shirt, on his white t-shirt, you know, where the nipple is. And he was just like, yeah, you know, not really thinking about it, not worrying about it. But that was how his symptom was that he had a bloody nipple. And then, you know, he eventually found out that it was breast cancer. So that's just a reminder. No one is really exempt. So men, pay attention to yourselves. If you have nipple changes, if you have a lump over there in the breast area, if you have bloody discharge or any discharge, milky discharge, look at your bodies. Don't be shy with yourself and pay attention to changes, and go to the doctor and understand that men can get breast cancer. And of course, women, similar things, you know, do yourself breast exams all the way up under your underarms. Okay. Checking for swollen lymph nodes. Look at your breast. Do you have anything that looks scaly or like alligator skin or like eczema, if you have abnormal nipple discharge, if you have lumps, bumps, if you're not sure, go in to see your doctor. Make sure that you check out right here on this YouTube channel. After you're finished watching this live, I have at least a couple videos, probably more, on breast cancer, signs, symptoms, things to look out for. So you just, go to my channel or on the YouTube, put Dr. Frita breast cancer, and you'll get all kinds of information. All right. I knew they would know who it
aside
was.
from breast cancer screening, Ali said he was informed about 35 to have about colon cancer, I guess, to get screenings for colon cancer.
By age 35, which is younger than what's typically recommended. And I'm curious, is there family history? Okay. I'm glad you brought up the colon cancer, because that's another one in this women's health study that they said, women are delaying getting those colon cancer screenings. And we know that colon cancer is something that's also quite prevalent. And colonoscopies, the general recommendation used to be at the age of 50, but now it's being recommended for 45 for certain groups. Certainly if you are at high risk, getting your colonoscopy at 45. So if you're 45 and you're sitting here and you're waiting till you're 50, go get your colon cancer screening now. Consult with your doctor. And if you have a family history, again, consult with your doctor, but it may be recommended for you to do your colonoscopy 10 years prior than that close relative. Also, if you have one of these familial syndromes, right, like a bunch of polyps or adenomas that run in your family, familial adenomatous polyposis, where you have lots of polyps, or if you have bloody stools, bloody diarrhea, or if you have some of these bowel diseases, like these autoimmune inflammatory bowel diseases, like ulcerative colitis, Crohn's disease, certainly you're going to be getting your colonoscopies more frequently. But again, colon cancer is another one of those illnesses where it can affect many people. But again, Black people tend to be affected with more aggressive forms at earlier ages. And we all remember our beloved Black Panther, Chadwick Boseman, who surprisingly died of colon cancer. And he was certainly younger than the age of recommended screening when he was diagnosed. So yeah, take care of yourself. Women, I know you're busy. I know you have a whole lot going on. But if you don't take care of yourselves, you're not going to be here potentially to take care of others. We got to do that prioritization. All right, as we move on to the next topic, again, be sure to like this video, share it right now. Let YouTube know we're here. We're here. Get used to it. All right. And also, there are nuances to these cancer screenings. If you have any questions, or if you really want some one-on-one information, of course, always consult your physician, consult your primary care doctor. But if you want to go into detail and have a conversation with me where I get your detailed history, your detailed family history, and you want to, have me to be able to weigh in a more meaningful manner, I do have a telehealth concierge service, and we'll put the link in the description. You can also go to drfrita.com, DRFRIT, as in take care of yourself, .com, and find out how to talk to me on concierge. We've been having some good old concierge appointments where I've really been able to talk to people, help people, and, get more information able to share, on this platform, which of course I love this platform. So yeah, check out my concierge telehealth service if you want to get some more detailed information. All right. Well, shall we talk about our president?
Let's talk about it.
Let's talk about him. All right. Roll that beautiful bean footage.
President Joe Biden has tested positive for COVID. This happened in Las Vegas, and that's where we find our Ouija Jang, who's traveling with the president and has all the latest details. Ouija, please fill us in.
Well, Major, we were inside this massive ballroom with several guests who were waiting to hear from President Biden, and he was running late, which is not unusual because he had other events. He had an interview scheduled right before this, and so we thought he was just running a little bit behind. But then the CEO of Unidos USA, the organization that was throwing this event, made the stunning announcement on the stage telling guests that President Biden was deeply sorry, but he was not going to make it tonight because he had just tested positive for COVID. He wanted to focus on his health and, of course, did not want to get anybody sick. Now, Major, this is before we heard anything from the White House. So the world learned about the president's testing positive in this very room. And then we got more details from the White House, including from President Biden's doctor, who said this afternoon he started feeling mild symptoms. He had a runny nose, he had a cough, and he just didn't feel well. And so he didn't have a fever, but he took a COVID test anyway and tested positive. He has already taken 1 dose of Paxlovid, which is used to treat COVID. He's already on his way back to Delaware, where he will self-isolate. And we just heard from the president as he was getting on Air Force One, and he said that he's actually feeling good. But Major, this is such a big development at a time when the president is already dealing with so much politically,
Okay.
ruling travel
That's good.
schedules.
Yep. So, Shador, as I mentioned, we were on vacation. The office was closed last week, and it was a physically relaxing vacation. And I tried my best not to do too much news watching. But even if I just flipped on the Instagram, I'm just sitting here thinking, tallying up everything that happened. So, yes, President Biden got diagnosed with COVID. Well, that was like last Wednesday while we were on vacation. And then, Shannon Doherty passed away. That was at the beginning of our vacation. And then learned about Representative Sheila Jackson Lee passing away. That was on the tail end of the vacation. And just go ahead, Richard Simmons passed away. Dr. Ruth passed away at age 96. You remember the sexpert? Now that I think of it, I'm gonna go ahead and say I had a good vacation. I'm thankful for it. But there was a lot of heavy medical news and a lot of loss, including President Biden. So as we get started, we'll talk about COVID, and we'll talk about, the outbreak and what you should know. But I want you all to put a 4 in the chat if you know of someone, or if you personally, you don't have to say who it is, but if you know of someone, or if you personally has had COVID in 2023, because we are having a summer surge, but it doesn't really seem to be in the media very much. And in fact, until they mentioned President Biden, no one's talking about it. So put a 4 if you know of someone, it could be yourself also, who's had COVID in 2024, because there is a summer surge and we're going to talk about it. But here's the thing that's interesting with the COVID. You remember back when we had the major, pandemic in 2020, you couldn't turn on any channel, certainly not a news channel, where the ticker wasn't going off on the side showing you how many cases there were globally, how many cases in the United States, how many deaths, how many people had gotten vaccinated. There was almost no one you could talk to who wouldn't have a very good, rapid understanding, of how many COVID cases there were. And there was a time where we had literally thousands of people dying each day, where the equivalent of 3 airplanes falling out of the sky of people from COVID deaths. That was happening. So while, yes, we are having the summer surge, I just want to make sure that everyone understands, I don't want to be an alarmist. It's nowhere near what it was, right? Back in 2020, 21, 2023 even is not there. But it's worth mentioning because COVID is still here. And if you're someone who is very immunocompromised, then you still want to be cognizant, right? And even though it's not the winter, we're having the summer surge. Has anyone put a 4 in the chat if they know of someone who's had COVID in 2024?
Oh, yes. Some 4s and a couple of comments, actually.
Okay, let me see who put some 4s in the comments. Let me put my 4s in the chat because child, even when no one was talking about it in the news before President Biden got it, it's still happening. We're still having hospitalizations. And in fact, in July, the most recent trend, when they looked at how many ER cases of COVID are occurring, it's up 18% just in this most recent July week compared to the previous week, up 18%. So just a reminder that it is here, but we'll talk about what you should do. So who put 4s in here?
Yeah, so Catherine, she put a 4, said, I've had 6 friends come down with COVID and said it was bad. I've started asking and carrying hand sanitizer. The doctor's office full of patients with cold symptoms. I'm scared. I'm masking.
That's a good idea. And here's what's interesting. We no longer have any mask mandates, just recommendations, specifically if you are having symptoms. But yes, if you're going into a doctor's office, especially if you think about it, okay, that's a special section of the population. People are oftentimes going into doctor's offices, not just for well checks, but because they're sick. And so if you're going and sitting up in the doctor's office, I would recommend putting a mask. And remember, those N95s, those KN95s are going to be more protective. Surgical masks are certainly better than nothing. Gone are the days of the bandana masks. Ooh, I remember we thought bandana masks were it. Child helping people. But excuse me, Gregory. Let me tell you, Shadow was in timeout. Okay, so for the whole week we were gone, Shadow was away with the sitter, and so I'm gonna have to reestablish my authority as if I had it before. But anyway, so yeah, so I think that's a good idea going into doctor's offices, knowing that there's a surge. Who else knows of someone and 6 people? That's a lot of people. Shoot. Okay,
Yeah.
who?
Monica, she says her husband had COVID twice.
Oh gosh, I'm sorry, Monica. I hope he's doing well. Yeah.
Likewise.
Yeah,
April.
and it's true. And it's true. If you had it before, or even if you've had the vaccine, thankfully, that vaccine covers the XBB variant, which was the more previous one. And now we've gone on and we've got the flirt variants, they're calling them the KP variants, where there still is some protection and people are getting less sick, which is why you're, probably seeing less things that are covered. But yeah, you can get it multiple times. Not fun.
No, I'm sure it's not. April, hello, April. She says about
Hi,
6
April.
people, friends and coworkers.
Yep. So if that's what's happening, and especially if you're working in a place that's kind of enclosed, don't be shy to put on the mask. Masks became so like this political hot button, especially back when there was a mandate. But we have to remember, back when there was a mandate, people were falling out of the sky. And then in the beginning, we had mandates when we had no Paxlovid. We had no cures, we had no vaccines. So, the CDC has relaxed on mandates, and there have been more recommendations. But when you put on a mask, look, don't feel shy about it. Don't feel shy. There was a time when people would look at you twice if you didn't have a mask on. Now they look at you crazy if you have one on. But if people around you, have been getting the infections, especially at work, please don't be shy to grab your N95, KN95, and protect yourself and protect your family.
Absolutely. See, chosen, Dr.
So,
Frita.
hi.
A relative contracted it while visiting a nursing home.
You remember back in 2020, who got hit the hardest? The nursing homes. Because of course you're dealing with people who are usually elderly in the nursing homes. People oftentimes have immunocompromised systems, things of that nature. And then in the nursing home, oftentimes the patients there will have roommates, right? And so you're breathing in each other's air, coughing, all of that. And so it hit our nursing homes hard. And so it's not a shocker that the person who picked it up in a nursing home. So that's something else. There's no mandate, but if you're visiting a nursing home, it would not be a bad idea, to grab a mask, especially knowing that we have a surge right now. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, with President Biden, so he started having symptoms on last Wednesday, and he tested positive. At that point, he didn't have a fever. And so let's talk about some of the symptoms now. They're very similar to a lot of the symptoms from before. But whereas before it seemed like, people got fever, shortness of breath, and people, even young, healthy people, were getting bad respiratory illnesses, and many of them didn't make it. Now, one of the predominant symptoms, Shador, is sore throat. Okay. But people can still get fever, shortness of breath. Some people are still losing taste or a sense of smell. That was real heavy in the beginning, you recall, but it can still happen. Even diarrhea. Okay. So it's not all respiratory. People are still getting diarrhea with the COVID symptoms. And before, you remember, we had all these isolations, quarantines, 14 days, 10 days. It changed quite a bit. Now we don't have those same CDC recommendations. I do recommend that you consult with your physician, though, to find out what recommendation is best for you and your lifestyle and your diagnosis. But the way it is now is if you have no symptoms, then it is recommended that you wear a mask. Okay, after you've been diagnosed, or if you had a symptom, then you're over it for at least 5 days, but it's not mandated that you wear a mask. And it's recommended that you stay home while you have symptoms, specifically fever symptoms, and that you don't go back to work or to school until it's been at least 24 hours of you being fever free with no medication, like without, Tylenol, Advil, ibuprofen, acetaminophen. If you just are able to be fever-free for 24 hours organically. And then they say when you go back, it's recommended by the CDC that you wear a mask for at least 5 days. So that's the recommendation, but we no longer have the official mandates like we used to have. They're more treating it the way they treat the common respiratory illnesses. Now, I don't know, is that a good idea? I just wish that people, if you know you're sick, just on the honor system, just put on a mask. Because I can imagine, and just traveling like I did on airplanes, I just bet there was people sitting up there with sore throats and coughing and carrying on, but there's no mandates. And so they didn't put on a mask. But y'all just please try to be respectful, because even if you have a good immune system and you're going to do well with your COVID infection, think about the people who are going home to cancer patients, chemotherapy patients, to elderly patients, to little kids with immune system compromises. And just please be considerate. That's the recommendation. Nobody's mandating it. All right. But yeah, so for President Biden, he did do some self-isolation in Delaware at his beach home, and he took Paxlovid. So you recall, and the other thing that the president has shared is that he is up to date with his vaccinations. And you remember at one time there were vaccine mandates. Certainly there aren't any mandates now, but there's recommendations. Consult with your physician, okay? Discuss your risk, but as early as 6 months, the COVID vaccine is available, and there are talks of them updating it to be even more specific to this variant that we have now. The latest one is the XBB variant as far as the vaccine, but now we have those flirt variants, the KP 1.1, the KP2, the KP3. KP3 is that very dominant one. And so they're talking about doing updated vaccines. But again, consult with your physician, especially if you're immunocompromised or elderly. But President Biden was up to date on all of his vaccines, and he got the Paxlovid, which is that antiviral treatment where you take it for 5 days. It's been recommended for people who are immunocompromised, people living with obesity, people with other like comorbidities, illnesses like high blood pressure, diabetes, things of that nature. Consult with your physician, but you want to take it. There's a tight time window for when you can start the Paxlovid according to the studies. And so like 2 to 3 days. And it's a 5-day treatment. You take several pills a couple times a day. And it's been reported that the president has completed his Paxlovid treatment. And apparently he's doing well. His doctor said that he's almost symptom-free now. You will recall with the Paxlovid, there can sometimes be a rebound in the COVID. Okay, so that's it with him as far as the COVID infection. But now I want to talk a little bit about age and ageism, especially how it can affect the medical community. I just want to touch on that a little bit. And then as I get ready to just delve into this a little bit, remember, we are going to close with the live Q&A. You can ask about any of the topics that we talked about today. And then, of course, y'all remember I'm a board certified kidney doctor and hypertension specialist. So I'm always champing at the bit to talk about kidney disease and high blood pressure. So go ahead and get your questions together, and we'll hit the live Q&A real quick in the end. But as far as the age, it had been after that debate where, I watched that debate. It was painful. And I really haven't seen anyone who says that President Biden did a great job as far as delivery. He had stuttering, and he shared that he's had stuttering for a lifetime, but definitely there was some slurred speech, some slowed speech, and some thought gaps. So it seems with him, and his was so stark and so obvious in the debate, and afterwards, many people called for him to resign. And I really like that man's fight, because it seems like right after the debate, he went and he was live. He was, witty. He had, quick, one-on-one kind of comebacks. And so he was all the way there so many times, and he went out, he did interviews, but, just a reality of life. And this is something that drives me crazy, is that many things come with age. Okay. One of them is wisdom. Okay. We can't forget about that. But as we get older, our speech does get slower. Our joints do hurt. Heck, I learned that I have knees, and I think I have a hip too. It happens as we get older. And many times you do have trouble word finding. Now, yes, there are some very serious and some very definite cognitive diagnoses, which President Biden says that he has not been diagnosed with. But, we know about Alzheimer's, we know about Parkinson's. Make sure you check out on this YouTube channel, dr.frita, where I have a video on dementia, where I'll go into detail there. I won't go into it here. So, but he has no reports, he hasn't stated that he has dementia or anything. But it really just was amazing how everyone acted like they didn't already know that the man was of an older age. But the other thing that gets me is that President Biden is not alone. Okay. Our former president, who is now that President Biden has stepped down, who's now the oldest presidential candidate in U.S. history, as far as I know, when you pay attention to him, he oftentimes goes off on tangents, or will have times where he forgets things, or when he was, running against President Biden, he would say that he was running against President Obama. Are all those things age related? Maybe, maybe not. But certainly these gaffes do tend to increase with age. And so I say that to say, Shador, so much of the attention has been on President Biden, but he's not alone. The former president also, yes, compared to President Biden standing there, the former president Trump's voice was louder. His tan was tannier for sure. His weight is heftier, which can make him seem less frail. But, he's not moving like a spring chicken either. And so when we all start pointing the finger at one person who's old, just look around, look in the mirror, like Michael Jackson. I'm looking at the man in the mirror. Being older does not mean it's time for society to discard you. There's a lot of wisdom with age. And so, a lot of times I see where it seems like we throw the elderly folks away, but let's just be real careful about that. And let's not be, people who execute ageism. All right. And in the medical field, the way that it relates, and then we'll get into Serena Williams real quickly, and then the live Q&A. A lot of times when doctors are offering treatments, if someone comes in and they're 85 years old, even if they're a robust 85-year-old, they'll be like, well, I don't know if you want to do this treatment. Your mom is getting older. And they'll not necessarily look into the fact that you can have a parent who's older, but they might be pretty robust. They might have a high quality of life. So as physicians in the medical field, we have to be careful on what treatments that we automatically don't offer just because someone is older. Respect the grown folk, because if we're blessed, we're going to be super grown and have a lot of age on us too. Any comments related to that, Shador?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so for the Serena, I'm going to hit on it real quickly, and then we'll go into the live Q&A, and then we'll close this thing right on out. Serena Williams, y'all know she is the GOAT. She is the GOAT. Y'all know I love her sister as well, Venus Williams, who is awesome as well. It's just Serena is a super beast. So here she is with her husband. We know Serena has had her own health issues related to pregnancy, and she has spoken out about maternal mortality, because we know that Black maternal mortality is almost 3 times that of other people, and there's many reasons, which we'll have to get into on another live. She talked about having a blood clot, a DVT, around the time of pregnancy, but she's not the headline right now. It's her husband, Alexis here, who shared that he had Lyme disease. Okay, so you'll be able to look that up, and actually do this for me. Put a 5 in the chat if you want me to do like a short or do a little information on Lyme disease. I can do that. Put a 5 in the chat, and if you say you want me to talk a little bit about Lyme disease, I will. And you can find it on my Instagram, and maybe even a YouTube short coming up this week. I'll do that. But he had Lyme disease. He says, he's had travel even in deserts, but just real general, Lyme disease is a bacterial infection that you get from a tick bite. Okay, usually a black tick. And it can be real subtle, because these tick bites oftentimes don't hurt. You don't even know you've been bitten with the tick, which is why when you go out into the woods, you should have somebody help you to look over your body, your whole body, to see if you have any ticks to get off. But anyway, it can cause fever, it can cause a rash, and a very specific type of a rash that the Lyme disease can cause. And it can even lead to some long-term complications, and it can trigger the autoimmune system. If y'all ever watched The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, Yolanda Hadid had Lyme disease. Justin Bieber shared that he had Lyme disease. But now, Serena Williams' husband has Lyme disease, and he states that he's doing well, but just a little reminder, especially for those of y'all who are out in the woods. But yeah, if I have any 5s in the chat, then I will go ahead and give some more details on Lyme disease. Any 5s?
Oh yeah, absolutely. A lot of 5s. First
Okay.
to chime in, we'll just go with a couple. Is Felicia.
Hi, Felicia. All right. Look for it this week. I'm gonna put it up. Lyme disease. Okay.
Ronnie.
Hello. All right. I'll put it on up.
Yeah, a lot of 5s, Dr. Frita. A lot of 5s.
Look, and for those of you who like that short form content, again, go to my Instagram at dr.frita, and you'll be able to see where I did while I was on vacation. I was still doing some videos. I did one on Shannon Doherty where I talked about what to know about breast cancer. I did one just yesterday that I posted on Representative Sheila Jackson Lee on what to know about pancreatic cancer. And I think, did I do any more? Oh yeah, I did a beet juice that I like. Oh, that beet juice tastes so good. Where I talk about that, and I talk about my juicer that I'm loving, the Nama J2 juicer to make my juices. And if you want to get a hold of that juicer, just go to my favorite things at drfrita.com. We'll put a link here also, because I have a discount code for you if you're interested in using the same juicer I use. But yeah, go to my my Instagram. And I have a short here where I talk about my beet juice. See, I'll be working on vacation, but that's fun for me. All right, so I'll do something on Lyme disease. All right. As we get into this Q&A, go ahead, hit like, por favor. Please like this video and share it. Let YouTube know we're here. We're giving good old information. And so I'll see what your questions are. And let's go. What we got, Shador? It's got a few minutes. Let's catch some of them.
Yes. So T chosen.
Hi, T chosen.
Our majority, so let's go back to the breast cancer screening. I'm assuming our majority fatty tissue breasts less likely to show areas of concern.
Actually, the really fatty tissues, especially if they're not dense, those are able to get screened a little more easily with traditional mammograms. Okay, when they're not dense, but they're because the dense breasts tend to be very fibrous, right? But the fatty ones, they can get flattened the way they need to get flattened. And I'm doing this because this is what happens to your breast in the mammogram machine. Okay, but if it's a fatty breast, then you can see more easily if there's a lesion of concern, if that's the question. But if you have a dense breast, which a lot of younger ladies have dense breasts, and a lot of Black women for some reason tend to have dense breasts, then it's more difficult to see if you're dealing with like a calcification or something that looks like a tumor. So you might have to get an ultrasound or MRI or even get a biopsy. But yeah, it's the dense breasts that are more difficult to screen than the fatty breasts.
All right, thank you, T chosen.
Yes, thank you.
This comes from Catherine.
Hi, Catherine.
So Catherine was talking about women's health. She said she just went to the physician assistant or PA, first appointment for medical care in over a year. Finally got my thyroid meds, been out a year, been 3rd-degree kidney failure. How can I have blood in my urine with no bacteria?
That's a good question. That's a good question. That's one of these detailed questions, though. I'll hit some on the surface, but if you want to know even more, of course, consult with your doctor. But also, I'll offer that telehealth that I mentioned, where I can go into more detail. But first, congratulations for actually taking this step and going in to see your doctor. I'm happy that you're on the thyroid meds, if the thyroid meds are what you need. And we know thyroid, especially hypothyroidism, low thyroid, is something that's very common. I have a lot of videos on right here on my YouTube channel to give more information on thyroid disease. And very specifically, my more recent one is under my playlist here on this YouTube channel. What's going on with Wendy Williams? When I talk about Wendy Williams' health, I have a whole video on thyroid, and I talk about her Graves' disease, okay, her hyperthyroidism, but I talk about other thyroid disease as well in detail. So check that out after this live. And then you already said what rings to my ear as a kidney doctor, that stage 3 kidney disease, or CKD stage 3. You'll get more general information, again, right here on this YouTube channel. I have a video on CKD stages where I talk to you about what stage 3 means, because if you have stage 3, where the EGFR is less than 60 milliliters per minute, okay, but it's greater than 30, then it is recommended that you consult a kidney doctor. You consult a nephrologist, okay? But as far as the blood in the urine, number one, you don't always see the blood, and you may not have seen the blood. They call it microscopic hematuria if you urinate and it looks normal to you, but then when they look under the microscope, they see blood. So yes, you can get blood when you have a urinary tract infection, but you can also get blood related to inflammation of the kidney cells, okay? So that's very important to find out. Or it could be from inflammation in the bladder that's not necessarily infection. This question requires more detail, so make sure you consult with your doctor. Ask about seeing a kidney doctor. If you want to talk to me more about it, and I could talk to you about it all day and get more history from you, then check out this link, and we'll put it in the description for my concierge service. Again, I'm a board certified nephrologist, so I specialize in kidney disease and high blood pressure. And so I can go into detail what that CKD3 means and what the blood in your urine means, just to make sure I can help to arm you with questions to ask your doctor, and also to give my input on what you can do to, number one, try to get your kidney function better, and certainly to try to slow down the progression. All right. Good luck to you, and be well. And thank you for sharing.
Thank you, Catherine.
Yeah.
DM have a question, Dr. Frita.
Hi.
Oh, wait a minute, I lost it.
Come on back.
I'll pull it up. I can't pull it up real quick. DM did ask, what are your thoughts on if you think our diet has a lot to do with the diseases that we contract?
Absolutely. I'll answer that real quickly. Our diet has a lot to do, and it's something, you know, as a medical student, we spend very little time learning about nutrition. And so a lot of what I know about nutrition now and using food as medicine has been through me doing my own research that combined with my traditional Western research. But yes, the foods we eat now, some of the studies are catching up, but just recently, and I believe right here on this live, we talked about the study that showed that people who had diets that were mostly ultra processed food had a significantly higher chance of having an early death than those who eat more fresh foods. Okay, so we know that having diets that are high in, sugary breakfast cereals, certainly in candy, even in processed breads with that, processed starches, heavy carbohydrates, those ultra processed foods, processed meats like bacon. Ooh, I know y'all like bacon. Whew, but these ultra processed meats can lead, to having a lower life expectancy. But the other thing that they found in that same study, which I'm glad that they were at least culturally sensitive enough to do this, they found that for people who had diets that did not have mostly ultra processed foods, people who had mostly fresh diets, it cost them up to 40% more to eat that way, to eat well, to eat clean, and there are different tricks, to eating in a clean manner. But for the most part, if you're trying to go to Sprouts and Whole Foods, it's going to be expensive. The other thing, when we have diets that are high in sugar, yes, high in starches, some of these diets will cause us to have insulin resistance, right? Where you can be more at risk for prediabetes and diabetes. They can also increase your risk from belly fat, that visceral fat, which also increases your risk for illness. So the short answer is absolutely what we eat can affect our health. And the more that we learn about that, then we can prevent these diseases instead of coming to me on the other end where we're trying to treat the diseases. Very good point.
Very good. Very good. And April, touch
Hi,
base with her.
April.
Get out. April, can you talk a little bit about polycystic kidney disease? Have you ever done a video on polycystic kidney disease?
Oh, I think I did do one. Listen, let me ask somebody. Listen, one of my med heads, my good people in the chat. Can y'all look and see if you go Dr. Frita, polycystic kidney disease? Have I done a video on polycystic kidney disease? I talk about it so much. Because if I haven't, I definitely will do one. So polycystic kidney disease, specifically ADPKD, is a genetic or an inherited kidney disease. And the one that is the most prevalent that we talk about is autosomal dominant, okay, ADPKD, meaning that if one parent has it, then with each child that is born, that child has a 50% chance of having it. So when you see one person in the family with ADPKD, then you'll often look around and there'll be aunts, uncles, on at least one side of the family, at least siblings who have it as well. So what happens in ADPKD, you have a genetic abnormality that causes you to get these large disfiguring cysts, like these fluid-filled balls in the kidneys. And instead of the kidneys just being the normal size of 9 to 11 centimeters, they can be 16, 18, 19. They can be huge, very large kidneys, and they can even cause someone to have what looks like a protruding abdomen because those kidneys are so large. When you have ADPKD, you have a high risk of having high blood pressure. You also have a high risk of having frequent urinary tract infections. Okay, the cysts can get infected, you can get blood in the urine. And most importantly, you can be at high risk for progressing to kidney failure, where you would qualify for transplant or dialysis. Okay, so this is with ADPKD. The other thing is that ADPKD can be associated with brain aneurysms, okay, where blood vessels in the brain can have thin walls. You can even get a ruptured aneurysm. It's associated with ADPKD. It can also be associated with liver cysts. Here's the important thing. Back when I was in training, we didn't have treatment for it. Okay, you had it. We'd be like, oh, let's try to control your blood pressure. Good luck. Let's try to get you a transplant. But I was in on a study with one of the principal investigators of a drug that we now are using to help with ADPKD. It's Dr. Arlene Chapman. This is back at Emory when I did my fellowship. And so I was able to work with her while she was doing these studies. And now we do have medications that can help to slow down the progression of kidney disease in ADPKD. So if you have it, or if you have a family member who has it, consult with your doctor, talk about getting tested for it, because unlike before, now there are things that we can do to slow down the progression. You also want to talk about, if it is progressing rapidly, talk about the medication, and also talk about seeing if you can get a preemptive transplant, meaning getting a kidney transplant without even before ever having to go on dialysis. But that's the skinny on ADPKD. Do I have a YouTube video, y'all, on ADPKD? Did anybody look?
I don't think you do.
Which is amazing because I treat it so much.
Yeah.
What's up? I got to do an ADPKD video. Thank you for that question. You done woke up something in me. Thank you. That was great.
All right, Dr. Frita. Lou is going to take us out. So I love your content, keeping us healthy.
Thank you so much. Let me tell you something. You could probably just about tell I love sharing the content. I do. And I appreciate comments like that. They really help to keep me going. When I started this channel, I was just going to do videos for my patients just because, surprise, surprise, I talk. my youngest daughter says I'm a D1 yapper, but yeah, I like to talk. And so I can't always talk about everything I want to talk about in the room with my patients. And so I was like, oh, I'll do some videos for them. But then once we started this channel, I'm like, it's more people than just my patients looking at these videos. And so I started seeing that there was that need. And so here we are. And so I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Frita. VE Hall did confirm, did not locate video. So no
Thank you for looking. Let me tell you something. Okay, so I'm going to do a short content on Lyme disease. And then coming up, I'm going to do a full video on the ADPKD. Now, don't you know that's a shrub? Okay, thank you. I appreciate you for doing that for me, for seeing if I have one. So I'll make sure I get that one done. But yes, as always, thank y'all for joining us here on Medical Mondays, where we hit the hot health topics in the headlines. And, we'll be here on Monday, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Make sure that you go ahead and like this video if you haven't done so. Subscribe to my channel. Hit that notification bell. We're up to over 740,000 subscribers on this channel. I thank you all for your support. Also, check out my other channels. Again, Instagram at dr.frita. I have different content over there. I'm also on TikTok and Facebook. Y'all know y'all old school people like Facebook. Sometimes I put a little more family stuff. Like I posted a couple of my family reunion videos on my Facebook page because my grown folks, we sometimes have fun checking out what the family is up to. And yeah, so thank y'all. Thank you, Shador, again, for being a wonderful co-host and a wonderful practice manager. Look, because we've been on vacation, but now we got work to do. Now that we're back and in action. So thank you guys. I appreciate you so much, Shador. Thank you. All right. So we'll see y'all next week. Thank you for joining us, Medical Mondays.